We hear so much about AI's potential, but what if the biggest hurdles aren't the tech, but actually how our companies are set up to handle it?
That's exactly it. Today, we're diving into some friction points people don't always talk about, like how finance and HR, with their, established ways of doing things, can sometimes slow down or even derail AI work.
Okay.
And also, why getting audit and compliance involved early isn't just bureaucracy, it's actually key.
Right, let's unpack that because developing these AI products, these services, it feels really different from a standard project with like clear steps laid out, doesn't it?
Oh, completely different. AI is just,
Yeah.
it's constantly changing, volatile, ambiguous, uncertain, all of that. Think about it. The underlying AI tech can leap forward in weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, maybe setting up the basic AI platform looks a bit like a traditional project, but building the actual applications on top, the stuff customers interact with, that's a whole other story.
So you're sort of navigating a shifting landscape, not following a fixed map.
Precisely. You need teams that are super adaptable, constantly learning. They need to be empowered, creative,
Hmm.
able to look at the latest AI developments, maybe even daily, and say, okay, how does this change our plan?
And it's cross-functional too, right? Lots of different perspectives needed.
Absolutely. You need input from all over. And the scope, the requirements, they tend to emerge during the work, not all neatly defined at the start.
Which sounds like it could definitely clash with how some departments usually operate, planning everything up front, sticking to the script.
That's the core tension right there. Traditional work management often loves detailed upfront plans, control, predictability.
Sure.
But for developing AI products and services, trying to nail everything down in the beginning, whether you risk missing the boat or just falling behind, being too cautious, too siloed, it just doesn't work well.
So this is where something like Agile comes in, tailored for that kind of adaptable product development.
Exactly. Agile principles are designed to handle exactly this kind of uncertainty and risk in product and service development, fostering that adaptability you need.
Okay, let's focus on finance for a bit. How does their typical budgeting approach cause problems here?
Well, traditional finance budgeting usually expects, clarity, task lists, statements of work, a really defined scope so they can allocate funds and track spending against that plan.
Which works fine for predictable stuff.
Right, for simple or even complicated work, it's great. But developing new AI products often gets into complex, sometimes even chaotic territory. You genuinely can't know all the details up front.
So finance asks for a detailed budget for this evolving AI product. What happens?
That's where you get the friction. Teams are pushed for solid plans and costs for something that's inherently uncertain.
Mm,
And since the traditional funding model might be the only one available, they often end up, well, guessing. It's almost like a necessary lie to fit the process.
that sounds problematic.
It is. Because forcing that rigid planning onto uncertain AI work, it doesn't really foster honesty. It leads to blown budgets, bad estimates later on, and it's not the team's fault. It's just a mismatch in how you're approaching it.
Okay, so what's the alternative? How should finance approach this differently?
The thinking needs to shift. Move away from funding discrete projects with fixed scopes towards funding based on, say, business capabilities or value streams, looking at the whole product or service lifecycle.
Value streams, like the flow of delivering value to the customer.
Exactly. Think about the core capabilities your business needs, especially those enhanced by AI that deliver the most value. You invest in strengthening those capabilities, that whole river of value.
Okay.
It might even make you think strategically, like which capabilities are truly core for us to invest in and which could we maybe outsource?
That's a pretty big shift in perspective for a finance department, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Finance needs to be comfortable with what you might call a dual modality.
Build modal.
Yeah, like having two ways of working. The traditional waterfall-style funding for projects where the scope is clear and predictable, and then a different, more flexible model for this emergent AI-driven product and service work.
Got it.
Funding capabilities lets you manage budgets within those broader areas. And success isn't just on time, on budget, it's about the value delivered to customers. Now, measuring that value, that can be tricky, but it's crucial.
And rigid budgets could kill innovation.
Definitely. If you put a hard cap on resources up front, you limit the ability to experiment, to explore new AI possibilities that pop up.
Yeah.
And often, finance gets involved too late, right?
Yeah.
So they just apply the old systems because that's all they know.
Makes total sense. Okay, let's pivot to HR. Similar issues there with traditional approaches.
Yeah, kind of a parallel story. Traditional HR often focuses heavily on individual performance metrics, right?
Yeah.
Annual reviews, individual goals.
Sure, that's pretty standard.
But AI development is intensely collaborative. It needs teams working seamlessly together. So reward systems, promotions, all based primarily on individual achievement. They can actually undermine that teamwork.
How so? Creates competition, maybe.
Exactly. It can create artificial competition within the team when what you really need is everyone pulling together towards shared goals.
So those individual incentives could actually backfire in an AI context?
They really can. What's needed is more of a cultural shift supported by HR systems that genuinely promote and reward team collaboration. Maybe a hybrid approach that recognizes individual contributions within that team success.
And HR needs to be part of that shift.
Critically. But just like finance, HR often gets overlooked in the early stages of AI initiatives. So you end up with these cultural roadblocks, these behavioral resistances stemming from old HR ways of thinking that nobody planned for.
Okay, finance, HR, potential hidden roadblocks.
Yeah.
Now, audit and compliance, you mentioned involving them early. They often get seen as, well, the no department, don't they?
They do sometimes get that reputation, yeah. The Debbie Downers who show up at the end and find problems. And look, their role is critical for managing risk, ensuring the company stays viable. We absolutely need them.
But the perception is they slow things down.
And that perception often comes from when they get involved. If they only see the finished product right at the end, they have to be rigorous, they have to scrutinize everything because they lack the context built up over time.
Okay.
My own experience, honestly. Working with audit and compliance folks, it's often been really positive when they're brought in earlier. They're usually very detail-oriented. They care about safety and doing things right.
So flip the script. Don't see them as gatekeepers at the end, but partners from the start.
Exactly. Keeping them out until the 11th hour forces them into that adversarial verification role. It can be demoralizing for everyone if they halt a project late in the game.
So the idea is shift left, bring them into the process much earlier.
Precisely. Shift left. Get regulatory compliance, get audit involved right near the beginning of the AI product or service development.
And what are the benefits of doing that?
Huge benefits. They can offer their expertise up front, help teams identify risks proactively, help build solutions that are compliant or auditable from the get-go.
So the final review becomes less stressful.
Much smoother. It shifts from this intense verification step to more of a confirmation because they've been part of the journey. And with AI changing so fast, their early, timely feedback is invaluable for course correction.
That sounds like a much healthier relationship.
It really is. It builds trust, collaboration, and honestly, the development teams benefit immensely from their unique perspective on risk and controls. That shift left idea is just, it's powerful. It really changes the dynamic.
So pulling it all together, the big theme here is engage these departments, finance, HR, audit, compliance, way earlier than maybe we traditionally would for AI work.
That's the heart of it. Stop treating them like afterthoughts or final hurdles. Bring them into the fold early.
And align their processes with the way AI work actually happens. Adaptive, collaborative, a bit uncertain.
Exactly right. If you don't align the processes, the systems, the tools in these crucial support functions with the nature of AI product and service development, you're creating these hidden barriers. Overcoming them is key to actually succeeding with AI.
This has been super insightful. It really highlights how maybe our standard organizational wiring isn't always set up for something as dynamic as AI. The key takeaway seems clear. Getting finance, HR, and regulatory functions in sync with the collaborative, adaptive reality of AI product and service work is vital. It's not just nice to have, it's about removing roadblocks to success.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing AI changes the game, and the support structure needs to change with it.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. How might those traditional structures in your organization be unintentionally holding back your AI ambitions?
That's a great question to ponder.
Well, if you want to dig deeper into this, explore more about transforming how we view work to really unlock AI's potential, definitely check out the links we've put in the description.